With an open heart, it is not possible to be overwhelmed. It's a quote from Richard Rudd in this Gene Key 36. If you're new to the Gene Keys, you can enjoy this conversation without having to know anything about them. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Welcome back. If you've been here, we're going to dive into Gene Key 36. All the Gene Keys are archetypes and themes that we will explore at some point in our life, whether or not we have these specific Gene Keys in our profile, which you can look up for free on the Gene Keys website, or whether you do not have these Gene Keys in your profile. You will likely be in relation to these Gene Keys with people in your life, or in the case of this one, the Sun transit. Every 6 days we move into a different theme that impacts all of us, and we're just coming to the end of this theme here, although I believe this theme, the shadow of this Gene Key, is turbulence, is something that we're going to be experiencing for a number of years, and we have been for a number of years already. So I feel like this is such an important conversation to have. The gift of this one is humanity, and the Siddhi is compassion. So this one is all about being human and what it means to be human. So turbulence, the dilemma with this one is being overwhelmed. And as I opened with, I felt it was important to open with the power that we have with our heart to not be overwhelmed, even with all the crazy going on in the world. But at the shadow level, as with all of the shadow states of all the 64 Gene Keys, it's a victim state. So in this case, we are victim to being overwhelmed. And we are overwhelmed with our emotions, or we're overwhelmed with our mind. And this turbulence can come from the physical world, the mental, the emotional, and most likely, in a lot of cases, it's all three of those. And we will not open our heart at the shadow level. It closes, and that's a reaction that we all have because it's in our DNA. It's been programmed in us to either repress what we feel, close down, or react and blame and project our fears, our insecurities. And at the shadow level, we do not take ownership for our own feelings, or that we can even be empowered to do something empowering with those feelings. So with turbulence, we're just completely overwhelmed by life, and we'll take on a pessimistic view about life, and we'll continue to experience struggle. And, as we know, life is not without suffering, but at the shadow level, it's the fear of suffering that creates more and more and more turbulence. So as we begin to open our hearts, and at the gift level here, it's like this is our transformational pathway. It's the creative pathway. So we start to fuel some of our emotion or our mind into creative, imaginative outlets versus projecting or blaming. And we start to use it as fuel, and this starts to slowly open our hearts. And as Richard Rudd said, I opened with this: there is no overwhelm with an open heart. The gift of humanity is that being human means that we can overcome turmoil. And being human means that we will go through turmoil. And as Richard Rudd says in the audio of this one, we would do good by telling the youth that turbulence is part of the human journey, and to have the attitude of acceptance towards that, and of curiosity, and the understanding that it's leading us to grow into who we really are, and to experience grace. And as we'll get into, the Siddhi is compassion. Being human, like, what does it mean to be human? And we see the stories play out in the Disney movies, a lot of them start off with this loss of a parent or some kind of struggle, and it's the hero's journey. It's the, will we answer the call and will we overcome? And that's the journey of being human, to trust in the unknown and to trust that there is a bigger force guiding our journey if we stay open and don't close the heart. And of course, it's okay if we do close the heart. And then part of being human is forgiveness, self-forgiveness, and then also calling in support of our fellow humans. We need each other. I know when I was going through my most turbulent times, and this is also referred to as a dark night of the soul. And in the I Ching, the hexagram was called darkening of the light. So this is again to speak to this, like, no one goes through this life without experiencing this darkening of the light. Whether we experience it ourselves or we're helping somebody else through the experiences, is to bring and experience compassion. And let's jump into the Siddhi here of compassion, because compassion is one of those words similar to, we really recently discussed and did the contemplation of grace. Those two words, and they're actually connected through the codon ring in this one, is grace, truth, and tenderness are all linked to this compassion. It's kind of hard to put words to. It's hard to understand unless we've experienced it ourselves. And the point of this suffering that we go through as humans is to crack us open. And as Richard Rudd says here, a direct quote, shatter the patterns that kept us apart from each other. And that's the journey, is moving from separation at the shadow level, feeling completely separate, and so therefore having fear of death, fear of lack, fear of being overwhelmed by life, fear of there is no point to life, fear of whatever the fears are, to climbing through the levels of frequency and coming to the Siddhic level is this remembrance at a cellular level that we are all one, that there is absolutely nothing separate. And compassion is, as Richard Rudd said, the only force in this world that has no agenda. And compassion, as he says, is where humanity and divinity come together, where the evolutionary forces and the involutionary forces come together. And we can think of compassion as this motherly tenderness, but it's so much more than that. It's, as Richard Rudd says, another quote, a mirroring of the whole sweep of our true nature. And again, his quote, the only force in the universe with no agenda. And the other interesting thing that he makes a point to say about this compassion is that it's a mirroring. Whatever state you find yourself in, compassion supplies an equalizing force and creates an opening or a wormhole. I love that. I used to think of compassion as only that motherly, tender way, which was a real disservice to me and to anyone who only thinks of it that way, because, as he says, compassion can come with ferocity, or it can come with that brush of lightness. And I can look back at times in my life where I can see how I was being compassionate with ferocity, but I judged it. But the importance of that ferocity in looking at compassion in that way is that, sometimes there needs to be a no. There needs to be a boundary drawn. while still having the perspective that you are connected to everything and everyone. And of course, with that, there is no judgment, there is no agenda. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the word compassion. Can you think in your mind of a time where maybe from your past there was actually compassion moving through you that you might have judged, like myself? Or can you think of a moment right now in time where you can offer more compassion? Or are you feeling the turbulence? Are you in it? Are you feeling overwhelmed by life? And has perhaps this video been a good reminder, that an invitation to allow your heart to open and soften a little bit and trust that life's got you? Anything else you'd like to share? I'd love to hear. And I've got a new series out that I want to announce at the end of this video here. Rhythms of Presence. I'm going to be sharing some of moments I've captured in stillness of nature and offer contemplative questions or prompts for you to sort of make a stillness meeting with yourself, to get in touch with the rhythm of your own presence and invite in some sort of insight or clarity or just feeling of peace and calm. So I invite you to check out those and any other contemplation video. Gene Keys, again, if you're new to the Gene Keys, you don't have to know anything about them to enjoy any of the contemplations that I've created this year. And with that, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.